I bought a mansion in secret, then caught my son-in-law giving a tour to his family, saying, "The master suite is mine, and my dad can have the room next door." I waited for them to leave, changed every lock, and installed security cameras. What they captured was shocking. You're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you, but I need to get this off my chest because it's eating me alive and I can't talk to anyone else about it without sounding completely insane. 3 months ago, I bought a mansion. Not just any house, a genuine, 7-bedroom, 4-acre estate in the most exclusive neighborhood in our city. Cost me $4.2 million, cash, no mortgage. The kind of place you see in movies, with a circular driveway, marble foyers, and a master suite bigger than most people's entire apartments. Here's the thing though, I bought it in complete secrecy. Shell company, private attorney, the whole 9 yards. No paper trail leading back to me, no public record showing my name. Why? Because I wanted to surprise my daughter Emma for her 30th birthday next month. She's been struggling since her mother died 2 years ago, both emotionally and financially, and I thought maybe giving her this incredible fresh start would help heal some of those wounds. My wife Sarah would have loved this plan. She always said Emma deserved to live like a princess, and after watching our daughter work 2 jobs just to make rent on a cramped apartment while her husband Tyler chased get-rich-quick schemes instead of finding steady work, I decided it was time to make Sarah's dream come true. The mansion sits behind electronic gates on Millbrook Heights Drive, surrounded by oak trees that are probably older than I am. The interior is something out of a magazine, original hardwood floors that gleam like mirrors, floor-to-ceiling windows that flood every room with golden light, a kitchen with granite countertops and commercial-grade appliances that could handle a restaurant. The master suite has a marble fireplace, walk-in closets that could double as bedrooms, and a bathroom with a soaking tub that overlooks the gardens. I spent 2 months furnishing it perfectly. Hired an interior designer, had the pool cleaned and the tennis court resurfaced, even brought in a landscaping crew to plant Emma's favorite flowers, white roses and lavender, along all the walkways. Every detail was planned with her in mind. The plan was simple: take Emma to dinner for her birthday, blindfold her during the drive home, lead her through those massive front doors, and watch her face when she realized it was all hers. Tyler could quit chasing cryptocurrency fantasies and maybe find some actual purpose. They could start a family in a place where their children would have room to run and play and grow. But last Tuesday, everything went sideways in the most spectacular way possible. I was driving to the house to check on a furniture delivery when I saw cars in the driveway that shouldn't have been there. A BMW I didn't recognize, an older Lexus with out-of-state plates, and Emma's beat-up Honda Civic. My first thought was confusion. How did they even know about this place? Then came the cold realization that someone had figured out my secret. I parked behind the guest house where my car wouldn't be visible and walked toward the main house on foot. The front door was standing wide open, and voices were echoing from inside the marble foyer, excited, loud voices that belonged to people who clearly thought they belonged there. "Tyler, honey, this place is absolutely incredible," a woman was saying. "You really struck gold with this one." That voice made my stomach turn. Patricia, Tyler's mother. I'd met her exactly 3 times in the 4 years Tyler had been married to my daughter, and each encounter had left me feeling like I needed a shower. She had this way of saying things that sounded like compliments but felt like insults, especially when it came to Emma. I pressed myself against one of the stone pillars and listened as footsteps moved across the foyer. "Trust me, Mom, this is just the beginning," Tyler's voice boomed through the space. "Come on, let me show you the master suite. That's obviously where Emma and I will be staying once we move in." The casual confidence in his voice hit me like a physical blow. Obviously where they'd be staying. Like it was already decided. Like the house was already his. "And where exactly will Emma's father be living?" Patricia asked, and I could practically hear her nose wrinkling with distaste. "Oh, there's a perfect room right next to the master. Close enough that we can keep an eye on him as he gets older, you know? Make sure he's not wandering around at night or getting confused about things. Plus it's right near one of the guest bathrooms, so that'll work out well for everyone." My hands clenched into fists. Keep an eye on me as I get older? I'm 58 years old, not 88. I run 5 miles every morning, bench press more than Tyler probably weighs, and built a multi-million-dollar consulting business from nothing. The idea that this unemployed dreamer thought I needed supervision was so absurd it would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. "That's very thoughtful of you," Patricia cooed. "Making sure he's comfortable but not underfoot. And this house, it's completely paid for? No mortgage payments?" According to Emma, yeah. Apparently her dad had some kind of life insurance windfall when her mom died. Lucky timing for us, right? Life insurance windfall. I almost laughed out loud at the sheer audacity of the lie. Sarah's life insurance barely covered her medical bills and Emma's student loans. This house came from 35 years of 60-hour work weeks, living below our means, and making smart investments while other people were buying boats and taking expensive vacations. Well, Patricia continued, I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised. When Tyler first told me he was marrying that girl, I worried she didn't come from the right kind of family. Her background seems so ordinary. But if her father can afford a place like this, perhaps I misjudged the situation. That girl. Her background seemed so ordinary. The way Patricia said it made my skin crawl. Emma was extraordinary in every way that mattered, kind, intelligent, creative, hardworking. The fact that we hadn't inherited generational wealth apparently made us suspect in Patricia's eyes. Mom, Emma's amazing, Tyler said, but his tone was more defensive than loving. And her dad's been really good to us. Very generous. Generous. That was certainly one way to describe it. I heard footsteps on the marble staircase and realized they were heading up to explore the second floor. Part of me wanted to march right in there and confront them, but something held me back. Maybe it was morbid curiosity about what else they might reveal when they thought no one was listening. Maybe it was the growing suspicion that this situation was even worse than I'd initially realized. I walked around to the side of the house and climbed the trellis near the library windows, thank goodness for all those morning runs and the stubborn pride that keeps me in decent shape. I made it to the second floor hallway without making a sound and positioned myself just outside the master suite where I could hear everything. Oh my goodness, look at the size of this closet. Patricia was practically squealing. Tyler, this is bigger than our entire master bedroom back home. I know, right? And check out these heated bathroom floors. Emma's going to absolutely love that. She's always complaining about cold feet in the morning. Where is Emma today, anyway? Asked another voice, Tyler's sister Melissa, who I'd met once at their wedding and hoped never to see again. She's at work. She doesn't even know I have access to this place yet. Her dad gave me a key yesterday and asked me to check that everything was ready for some kind of surprise he's planning for her birthday. My jaw clenched so hard I thought I might crack a tooth. I had given Tyler that key, but only because Emma had specifically asked me to. She'd said they wanted to help with any last-minute preparations for her birthday surprise. I never imagined he'd bring his entire family here for a private tour and planning session. So when exactly are you two planning to move in? Patricia asked, and her voice had taken on a calculating tone that made my blood pressure spike. Well, here's the thing, Tyler said, and his voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Emma's dad is talking about this being a birthday surprise, like he's giving it to both of us as a gift. But honestly, Mom, I think he's been getting a little confused about things since his wife died. Emma and I have been talking, and we think the best approach would be for us to just take over the practical management of the house. You know, handle the utilities, maintenance, property taxes, all that complicated stuff. Make sure he doesn't make any poor financial decisions. That sounds very mature and responsible, Patricia said approvingly. Men his age, especially when they're dealing with grief, they can make some really questionable choices. It's good that you're thinking ahead. Confused about things. Poor financial decisions. The casual way they were discussing my supposed mental decline made me feel sick. I was sharper now than I'd been in years. Grief had a way of burning away everything non-essential and leaving you with crystal clear priorities. Plus, Melissa chimed in, if he's already bought this place impulsively, who knows what else he might do. You really can't be too careful with elderly people who come into sudden money. Elderly people. I'm 58, not 98. The important thing, Patricia said, is protecting Emma's interests. This house represents serious money, I'm guessing at least $4 million, maybe more. You need to make sure her father doesn't do something foolish and lose it all. Exactly, Tyler agreed. We're thinking about maybe talking to someone about getting some kind of legal arrangement in place. Just to make sure everything stays in the family, you know? Legal arrangement. The phrase sent ice water through my veins. I'd heard enough. More than enough. I climbed back down the trellis, got in my car, and drove straight to my attorney's office with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Gerald Morrison had been my lawyer for 20 years, handling everything from business contracts to Sarah's will. He took one look at my face when I walked into his mahogany-paneled office and immediately cleared his schedule. What happened? He asked, pouring me a glass of water because I probably looked like I was about to pass out. I told him everything, the secret house purchase, Tyler's unauthorized tour, the conversation I'd overheard about my supposed mental decline and their plans for legal arrangements. When I finished, Gerald was shaking his head with the expression of someone who'd seen this story play out before. How much does Emma know about any of this? He asked. About the house? Nothing. About Tyler's plans? I have no idea. I want to believe she's innocent in all this, but you're not sure. I'm not sure about anything anymore. Gerald leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers the way he did when he was thinking through complex problems. Here's what we're going to do, he said finally. First, we're changing every lock on that property today. Second, we're installing a comprehensive security system, cameras, motion sensors, the works. And third, we're documenting everything that happens from this point forward. You think Tyler's going to try something? I think Tyler and his family are planning to have you declared mentally incompetent so they can control your assets. It's more common than you'd think, especially with widowed people who come into money. The fact that he's already talking about legal arrangements tells me they've probably consulted with someone about the process. My hands started shaking again. Can they actually do that? If they can show evidence of mental decline, impulsive financial decisions, inability to manage your affairs? Yes, they can petition for conservatorship. And once that happens, you lose control of everything, your money, your property, even basic decisions about your own life. But I'm not mentally declining. I'm sharper now than I've been in years. I know that, and you know that. But conservatorship hearings aren't always about what's true, they're about what can be proven in court. And if Tyler and his family are willing to lie, fabricate evidence, or manipulate Emma into supporting their claims. He didn't need to finish the sentence. So what's the security system for? Evidence. If they try to access the property illegally, if they attempt to plant evidence or stage something that makes you look incompetent, if they try to manipulate Emma or coerce her into supporting their story, we need everything on video. The locksmith met us at the house 2 hours later. By evening, every entrance had new locks with keys that only Gerald and I possessed. The security company worked through the night installing cameras at every door, window, and major interior space, plus motion sensors throughout the grounds. The system was state-of-the-art, 4K resolution, night vision, audio recording, cloud storage, and real-time alerts sent directly to my phone. I went home and waited. The first alert came at 9:52 p.m. that same night. I opened the app on my phone and watched Tyler's BMW pull up to the front gate. He sat there for almost 2 minutes, probably trying his remote and wondering why nothing was happening, before getting out of the car and walking up to the call box. What the heck? I heard him mutter, pressing buttons. Emma, the gate's not working. Emma's voice came through the car's Bluetooth system. She was obviously on speakerphone. What do you mean it's not working? I mean it's not opening. The remote's not working, the call box isn't responding, nothing. Maybe Dad changed the code or something? You should call him. At 10 o'clock at night? He'll think something's wrong. Well, something is wrong. The gate's not working. I watched Tyler pace in front of the gate for another few minutes, taking pictures with his phone and talking to Emma about how weird it was that everything had suddenly stopped working. Finally, he got back in his car and drove away, but not before stopping to take more pictures of the property from the road. The second alert came the next morning at 7:15 a.m. This time it was Emma alone, in her Honda. She tried the gate remote, pressed the call box buttons, and even tried calling the house landline that I'd had installed but never given the number for. After 10 minutes of increasingly frustrated attempts, she drove away looking confused and upset. I almost called her then. Almost broke down and explained everything. But something held me back, maybe the memory of Tyler's voice discussing my supposed mental decline, or the calculating tone in Patricia's voice when she talked about protecting the family's interests. The third alert changed everything. It came that afternoon at 2:30 p.m. Tyler's BMW again, but this time he wasn't alone. Patricia was with him, along with a man I didn't recognize, tall, balding, expensive suit, briefcase. They parked outside the gate and got out, with Tyler gesticulating wildly and the stranger taking pictures of everything. I turned up the volume on my phone and leaned closer to the screen. Told you, Mom, something's definitely not right here, Tyler was saying. Yesterday everything worked fine, and now suddenly we can't get in at all. Maybe her father found out you brought us to see the house, Patricia suggested. So what if he did? Emma and I are married. We have every right to see the house we're going to be living in. Besides, he gave me the key himself. The man in the suit finished taking pictures and walked back to them. Tyler, based on what you've described and looking at the value of this property, I think we need to move forward more aggressively than we initially discussed. Move forward more aggressively. My blood ran cold. What exactly are you suggesting, Mr. Hendricks?" Patricia asked. Hendricks. Now I remembered where I'd heard that name. He was a lawyer who specialized in elder law and estate planning. I'd seen his advertisements in the newspaper, promising to help families protect their assets and ensure proper care for aging loved ones. Well, if Emma's father is showing clear signs of mental decline, making impulsive financial decisions, suddenly becoming paranoid and shutting out family members, displaying erratic behavior, then Emma may need to consider pursuing emergency conservatorship. Emergency conservatorship. The words hit me like a physical blow. "That seems pretty extreme," Tyler said, but his tone suggested he was already considering it. "Not extreme at all," Hendricks replied smoothly. "It happens all the time with recently widowed seniors who come into sudden wealth. They make grandiose purchases, start displaying paranoid behavior, begin making decisions that put their safety and financial security at risk. The courts are very sympathetic to adult children who step in to protect vulnerable parents." "But Emma would never go for something like that," Tyler protested. "She adores her father." "Emma doesn't need to understand all the legal complexities initially," Patricia said, and the cold calculation in her voice made my skin crawl. "She just needs to see that her father is acting strangely and needs help. You document concerning behaviors. Maybe he's been forgetting things, making odd statements, acting paranoid or erratic since his wife died." "I don't know about lying to Emma." "Who said anything about lying?" Hendricks interrupted. "You're simply helping her recognize warning signs she might be too close to see clearly. Grief can make people blind to their loved one's declining mental state." "Mr. Hendricks is right," Patricia added. "And Tyler, you have to think about this practically. Do you have any idea what this property is worth? I'm estimating at least $4 million, possibly more. Add in whatever other assets he has, retirement accounts, investments, life insurance, and we could be talking about serious money. Money that should be securing Emma's future, not being wasted on impulsive purchases by someone who's clearly not thinking straight." "Emma's future," Tyler repeated slowly. "Exactly. Your family's future. Your children's future." They spent another 30 minutes discussing strategy, with Hendricks explaining the conservatorship process and what kind of evidence they'd need to present to a judge. I recorded every word, my hands shaking as I held the phone and listened to them plan the systematic destruction of my independence and dignity. When they finally left, I immediately called Gerald. "We have a bigger problem than we thought," I said when he answered. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where my son-in-law is consulting with an elder law attorney about having me declared mentally incompetent so he can take control of my assets." There was a long pause. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" "I have the entire conversation on video. They're planning to manipulate Emma into supporting emergency conservatorship proceedings." "Bring me everything. We need to discuss your options." I spent the rest of that day copying files, organizing evidence, and trying to figure out how to approach Emma without sounding like the paranoid old man Tyler was claiming I was. Because despite everything I'd heard, I still couldn't believe my daughter was actively part of this conspiracy. Tyler, yes. Patricia, absolutely. But Emma had been Daddy's little girl her entire life. She'd never intentionally hurt me. Would she? The fourth alert came that evening at 8:45 p.m. Emma's Honda, alone. She got out and walked up to the gate, but instead of trying the call box, she just stood there looking up at the house with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sadness? Confusion? Hurt? After about 10 minutes, she got back in her car and drove away without attempting to contact me. I almost called her then. Almost broke down and explained everything. But Gerald's words kept echoing in my head. Conservatorship hearings aren't about what's true, they're about what can be proven in court. The fifth alert was the one that proved Gerald was right to be paranoid. It came at 11:47 p.m. 3 days later. Tyler's BMW, but this time he wasn't trying to get through the gate. Instead, he drove past the main entrance and parked on Oakdale Road, which runs along the eastern edge of the property. I switched to the perimeter cameras and watched Tyler get out of his car with what looked like wire cutters. He was dressed in dark clothing and moved with the careful stealth of someone who knew he was committing a crime. He walked along the fence line until he found a spot where the mature landscaping provided cover from both the road and the house, then systematically cut through the chain-link fencing. Breaking and entering. I had him on video committing an actual felony. I watched him cross the property in the darkness, using his phone's flashlight to navigate toward the main house. But instead of trying to break into the house itself, he headed for the pool house, which had a separate entrance and its own small office space. 25 minutes later, he emerged carrying something under his arm, a manila folder that I recognized as containing some of the property's original paperwork. Documents that I'd left in the pool house office because I'd thought they'd be safe there. He was stealing evidence. Probably looking for anything that might support their claim that I was making impulsive, irrational financial decisions. This time I didn't hesitate. I called 911. "I need to report a burglary in progress," I told the dispatcher, giving them the address and Tyler's exact location. "The suspect is currently on my property, and I have him on security camera committing the crime." "Sir, are you in any immediate danger?" "No, I'm not on the property. But he's stealing documents, and I have video evidence of him cutting through my fence to gain access." 2 patrol cars arrived within 12 minutes. I watched the entire arrest unfold on my phone, Tyler trying to run when he saw the flashlights, getting tackled near the fence line he'd cut through, the officers finding the wire cutters and the stolen folder. It was 1:23 a.m. when my phone rang. "Dad?" Emma's voice was shaky, tearful. "Dad, something terrible has happened. Tyler's been arrested. He called me from the police station, and he says you had him arrested for trying to get into some house you bought? Dad, what's going on?" My heart broke at the confusion and pain in her voice. "Emma, sweetheart, we need to talk. But not over the phone. I don't understand any of this. Tyler said you bought some kind of mansion without telling me, and now he's in jail for trespassing, and his mother is calling me screaming about how you've lost your mind, and I don't know what to think. Come to my house tomorrow morning. Early. Come alone, and I'll explain everything. Dad, you're really scaring me." "I know, honey. I'm so sorry. But I promise you, everything will make sense tomorrow. And Emma?" "Yeah? I love you. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone tells you, remember that everything I've done has been because I love you." She was quiet for a long moment. "I love you too, Dad. But I'm really scared right now." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen until dawn, drinking coffee and trying to figure out how to explain this nightmare to my daughter without sounding like exactly the kind of paranoid, mentally unstable person Tyler was claiming I was. Emma arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, looking like she hadn't slept at all. Her eyes were red from crying, her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing the same clothes from the day before. She looked younger than her 30 years, and fragile in a way that reminded me painfully of the weeks after her mother's funeral. I made fresh coffee and sat her down at the kitchen table, the same oak table where we'd eaten breakfast together when she was in high school, where we'd planned her wedding 4 years ago, where we'd held each other and cried after Sarah's diagnosis. "Emma," I said carefully, 3 months ago, I bought a house. A very large, very expensive house. I was planning to surprise you with it for your 30th birthday next week." "A house?" She looked confused. "Dad, what are you talking about? What kind of house?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken during the final walkthrough, the sweeping staircase, the marble foyer, the master suite with its fireplace and garden views, the gourmet kitchen, the pool and tennis court. Her eyes grew wider with each image. Dad, this is incredible. This looks like something from a movie. But how? I mean, how did you afford something like this? 35 years of saving and investing. Your mother and I always lived modestly so we could leave you something substantial. After she died, I realized I didn't want to wait until I was gone to give you the life she always dreamed you'd have." Emma started crying then, quiet tears that broke my heart into pieces. "But Tyler said. He said you were making impulsive decisions, that you've been acting strangely since Mom died. Tyler said a lot of things." I opened my laptop and pulled up the security footage. "Emma, I need you to watch this. All of it. And I need you to understand that what you're about to see is going to be very difficult." It took 3 hours. Emma watched her husband giving unauthorized tours to his family, claiming ownership of rooms, dismissing me as an elderly man who needed supervision. She watched Patricia and the lawyer discussing emergency conservatorship proceedings. She watched Tyler break into the property and steal documents. With each video, her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to hurt to anger. When the footage of Tyler's arrest finished playing, Emma was crying harder than I'd seen her cry since her mother's funeral. "I didn't know," she kept saying. "Dad, I swear, I had no idea he was doing any of this." "I believe you," I said, and I meant it completely. "But Emma, you need to understand what Tyler was planning to do. He wasn't just trying to take advantage of a generous gift. He was planning to have me declared mentally incompetent so he could control all of my assets. The house, my retirement accounts, everything." "That's not." "He wouldn't." She trailed off, but I could see the dawning realization in her eyes. "The lawyer they consulted, Hendricks, specializes in elder law and conservatorship cases. They were planning to use my purchase of this house as evidence that I'm making irrational financial decisions. Emma stared at the blank laptop screen for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. The house was supposed to be my birthday present? The house was supposed to be your fresh start. A place where you could build the life your mother always wanted for you, with someone who deserves you. And Tyler was going to. Tyler was going to steal it all and convince you it was for everyone's protection. Emma was quiet for another long moment, processing everything she'd learned. Finally, she asked, "Can I see it? The real house, not just pictures?" We drove out to Millbrook Heights that afternoon in my car, Emma silent beside me as we wound through the tree-lined streets of the exclusive neighborhood. When we reached the gate, I used my remote to open it, and we drove up the circular driveway in silence. Emma walked through every room like she was in a dream. She ran her fingers along the marble countertops in the kitchen, stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the manicured gardens, tested the acoustics in the music room by humming softly to herself. When we reached the master suite, she stood in the doorway for a full minute before stepping inside. "You really did all this for me?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder and heartbreak. "For you and whoever makes you truly happy," I said. "Someone who sees you as a partner, not a meal ticket. Someone who would never dream of having me locked away in some facility so they could steal your inheritance." Emma walked to the windows that overlooked the rose garden and pressed her palms against the glass. "Mom would have loved this. She would have loved watching you be happy here." "What happens now?" she asked without turning around. "That's entirely up to you. The house is yours if you want it. But Emma, I can't. I won't have someone in my life who sees me as an obstacle to be eliminated." She turned to face me then, and I saw my wife's strength in her eyes. "I want Tyler out of my life." "Are you sure? Marriage isn't something to end lightly, even when, Dad, I watched my husband plan to destroy you so he could steal everything you've worked for. I watched him lie to me, manipulate me, and conspire with his family to have you declared incompetent. There's no coming back from that." Emma filed for divorce 2 weeks later. The criminal charges against Tyler were reduced to trespassing in exchange for him signing a restraint order agreeing never to contact me or enter any of my properties again. Patricia stopped calling Emma after the third time Emma told her exactly what she thought of her family values. But the story doesn't end there. Emma moved into the mansion 6 weeks ago, and she's been transforming it into something even more beautiful than I'd imagined. She turned the morning room into an art studio where she's been rediscovering her passion for watercolor painting. She planted herbs in the garden and started hosting dinner parties for her friends from work and art class. Last month, she had a housewarming party, 30 people, all of them genuinely happy to see her thriving. As I watched her giving tours of her new home, laughing and relaxed in a way I hadn't seen since before her mother got sick, I realized this whole nightmare had been worth it. But here's the part that still gives me chills. 3 weeks ago, Emma was cleaning out the last of Tyler's belongings from storage when she found a folder hidden in the bottom of a box. Inside were documents I'd never seen before, loan applications submitted using my name and social security number, credit card applications, even a reverse mortgage application for my original house. All of them had been denied because I have credit monitoring, but the applications existed. Tyler had been planning this for months, possibly years. The mansion was just the final piece of a much larger scheme. Emma also found printed emails between Tyler and presumably David Hendricks, the lawyer. In them, Tyler discussed accelerating the timeline and creating documentation of mental decline and ensuring he doesn't interfere with the process. Creating documentation of mental decline. I showed these documents to Gerald, who went white as he read them. "This suggests they were planning to fabricate evidence," he said. "Stage incidents, create false documentation, maybe even arrange for you to be found in compromising situations that would support claims of mental instability." "What kind of situations?" "Wandering around confused, forgetting important appointments, maybe even being found in dangerous situations that could be blamed on poor judgment or memory loss." The implications made me sick. How far were they willing to go? Would Tyler have actually endangered my safety to build his case? Gerald recommended that I hire a private investigator to look into Tyler's background and current activities. What we discovered was even worse than we'd imagined. Tyler had consulted with Hendricks about conservatorship proceedings for 3 other elderly people over the past 2 years. In each case, he'd worked as a family friend helping adult children navigate the legal process of gaining control over their parents' assets. In 2 cases, the elderly person died within months of losing their independence. In the 3rd case, the person was moved to a memory care facility despite having no diagnosis of dementia. It was a business. Tyler was running a business targeting vulnerable seniors. The investigator also discovered that Patricia had been married 4 times, and each of her previous husbands had died under circumstances that, while not legally suspicious, had left her significantly wealthier. Emma was horrified when she learned all this. "I lived with him for 4 years," she said. "How did I not see what he really was?" "Because people like Tyler are very good at hiding their true nature," I told her. "They target people who are trusting and kind, like you. And they're patient, they build relationships over years before they make their move." But even knowing all this, I couldn't shake the feeling that Tyler wasn't finished with us. The restraining order was just a piece of paper, and people who run elaborate schemes targeting seniors don't usually give up after one failure. My suspicions were confirmed 2 months ago when Emma's credit report showed someone had attempted to open a credit card in her name using our old address. The application was denied, but it meant someone was still actively trying to exploit our family. Then, 3 weeks ago, Emma received a call from someone claiming to be from the county assessor's office, asking detailed questions about the value of her new home and whether she was planning to claim homestead exemption. When she called the actual assessor's office, they had no record of anyone calling her. Someone was still gathering information about our assets. Last week, things escalated again. Emma was driving home from her art class when she noticed the same gray sedan behind her for several miles. When she turned into our neighborhood, the car continued following. She called me immediately, and I told her to drive straight to the police station instead of coming home. The car disappeared when she changed direction toward the police station, but we'd both gotten the message loud and clear: we were still being watched. I've upgraded the security system twice since then. We now have cameras covering every approach to both properties, motion sensors throughout the grounds, and a direct line to a private security company that can have armed guards on site within 10 minutes. Emma suggested we might be overreacting, but I reminded her of something the private investigator had told us: people who target seniors for financial exploitation rarely work alone, and they often have backup plans when their initial scheme fails. Tyler might be out of our lives, I told her, but Patricia is still out there, and she knows exactly how much money is involved. People like that don't just walk away from $4 million. So what do? We stay vigilant. We document everything. And we never, ever let our guard down. Yesterday was Emma's 31st birthday. We had a small dinner party at the mansion, just her closest friends and me. She made her grandmother's famous lasagna recipe, and we ate in the formal dining room with the crystal chandelier casting rainbow patterns on the walls. As I watched Emma laughing with her friends, surrounded by the beauty and security I'd tried to create for her, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Sarah died: pure, uncomplicated happiness. But later that evening, after everyone had gone home, Emma and I were cleaning up when we heard the gate alarm. Someone had approached the property perimeter and triggered the motion sensors. We pulled up the camera feed on the security system and saw a figure in dark clothing standing just outside the gate, looking up at the house. The person stood there for almost 10 minutes before walking away, but the cameras couldn't capture a clear image of their face. "Probably just someone curious about the house," Emma said, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Maybe," I said, but we both knew it wasn't likely. Millbrook Heights isn't the kind of neighborhood where people take midnight strolls past gated estates. This morning, I called Gerald and told him about the incident. "I think it's time to take this to the FBI," he said. "What Tyler was doing, targeting multiple seniors for conservatorship fraud, that's a federal crime. Especially if he was working across state lines." "Will they actually investigate?" Elder fraud is a priority for federal law enforcement now. The losses are in the billions annually, and it's often connected to organized crime. If Tyler was running a systematic operation, they'll want to know about it. So that's where we are now. Emma and I are meeting with federal agents next week to present everything we've documented: the security footage, the stolen documents, the evidence of Tyler's previous schemes, the ongoing harassment and surveillance. Part of me wonders if I'm being paranoid, if maybe Tyler really has moved on and we're seeing threats where none exist. But then I remember Patricia's calculating voice discussing my supposed mental decline, and Tyler's casual confidence as he planned to have me locked away, and I know we can't afford to let our guard down. The truth is, buying that mansion saved my life in more ways than one. Yes, it gave Emma the fresh start she needed and revealed Tyler's true nature before he could do permanent damage. But it also showed me something crucial about myself: I'm not ready to be managed or supervised or treated like a fragile old man who can't make his own decisions. At 58, I've got 20 or 30 good years left, maybe more. I want to spend them watching Emma build a career as an artist, maybe travel with her to places her mother always wanted to visit, possibly even watch her find someone who deserves her love and loyalty. But first, I need to make sure Tyler and his family can never threaten us again. Emma asked me yesterday if I regret buying the house, considering everything that's happened. I told her the truth, I don't regret it for a second. The house revealed who Tyler really was before he could steal her inheritance and destroy my independence. It gave her a safe place to rebuild her life, and it gave me the evidence I needed to protect both of us from people who saw us as nothing more than opportunities. But I do regret that my wife isn't here to see Emma thriving again. Sarah always said Emma had the heart of an artist and the soul of a fighter, and she was right on both counts. Emma's been painting again, watercolors of the gardens, portraits of her mother from memory, abstract pieces that somehow capture the emotional journey she's been on. Last week, she sold her first painting to one of her dinner party guests. It was a landscape of the rose garden at sunset, and when the woman wrote that check, Emma cried happy tears for the first time in months. "Mom would be so proud," she said. "She is proud," I told her. "Wherever she is, she's watching you become the person she always knew you could be." That night, Emma and I sat on the back terrace overlooking the pool, drinking wine and talking about the future. She's thinking about applying to graduate school for fine arts, maybe opening a small gallery someday. I told her about my plans to establish a foundation in Sarah's name, focusing on helping other families targeted by elder fraud. "We could make something good come out of all this," I said. "I'd like that," she replied. "Turn our nightmare into something that helps other people." As we sat there in the warm evening air, surrounded by the security and beauty I'd tried to create for her, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time since Sarah died, I wasn't looking backward with grief or forward with anxiety. I was simply present in that moment, grateful for my daughter's safety and proud of her strength. But even as I felt that peace, part of me remained watchful. The gray sedan that had followed Emma. The figure outside our gate. The ongoing attempts to access our financial information. These weren't coincidences or paranoid fantasies, they were reminders that people like Tyler and Patricia don't simply disappear when their first plan fails. They evolve. They adapt. They wait for new opportunities. Which is why, 3 days ago, I made a decision that Emma doesn't know about yet. I hired a private security firm to provide discreet protection for both of us. Not obvious bodyguards or anything dramatic, just professionals who know how to spot surveillance, detect threats, and respond quickly if someone tries to approach us with ill intent. It might seem like overkill, but after everything we've learned about Tyler's operation and the scope of elder fraud in general, I'd rather be overly cautious than sorry. "Gerald thinks I'm being smart. Prevention is always cheaper than recovery," he told me. "And some things, like your safety and independence, can't be recovered once they're lost." The FBI meeting is tomorrow. Agent Sarah Chen specializes in financial crimes against seniors, and she's reviewed our preliminary documentation. She says Tyler's pattern of behavior fits the profile of someone running what they call an affinity scheme using family connections and community relationships to identify and exploit vulnerable targets. "The good news," Agent Chen told me during our initial phone conversation, "is that you documented everything meticulously. The bad news is that this type of operation usually involves multiple perpetrators and ongoing threats to victims who've exposed them." What does that mean for Emma and me? It means you were right to take security precautions. And it means we're going to take this case very seriously. So here we are, a father and daughter who bought a beautiful house and accidentally uncovered a criminal conspiracy that could have destroyed our lives. We're stronger for having survived it, but we're also more aware than ever of how quickly trust can be betrayed and how easily predators can disguise themselves as family. Emma's birthday gift turned into the education neither of us wanted but both of us needed. We learned that love without boundaries is vulnerability, that generosity without verification is foolishness, and that sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we should watch most carefully. But we also learned that we're stronger together than either of us realized, that evidence is more powerful than manipulation, and that it's never too late to start over when you discover you've been living with lies. The mansion sits on its 4 acres of perfectly manicured grounds, protected by gates and cameras and the kind of security system that ensures we sleep peacefully at night. Emma's art studio fills with golden afternoon light, and her paintings grow more confident and beautiful each day. Tyler is somewhere else now, probably identifying new targets, crafting new schemes. Patricia is likely coaching him on how to appear more trustworthy, more deserving of the next family's confidence. But they won't be targeting us again. We're no longer naive, no longer vulnerable, no longer the easy marks they thought we were. And that knowledge, hard won as it was, might be the most valuable gift the mansion has given us. Tomorrow, after we meet with the FBI, Emma and I are going to plant a memorial garden in the corner of the property where Sarah's favorite flowers, white roses and lavender, can grow wild and beautiful. It seems fitting that something so pure should take root in a place that was nearly stolen from us by people who understood the price of everything and the value of nothing. The house was supposed to be a surprise for Emma's 30th birthday. Instead, it became the foundation for her 31st year and beyond, a year that's starting with truth, safety, and the knowledge that her father will always fight to protect what matters most. Some gifts come wrapped in ribbon and paper. Others come disguised as disasters that teach you who you really are and what you're truly capable of protecting. This mansion was both kinds of gift, and I wouldn't change a single terrifying, enlightening moment of the journey that brought us here.